We are now ready for our keynote, and if I can have you eat and kind of gather around, that'd be terrific. I have a couple of things to say before I turn the podium over to Lev. First of all, I do want to welcome everybody here. I want to welcome all of the participants. We have many faculty here that have agreed to show what they're doing with technology and teaching and learning. And we're pretty thrilled that we actually got this launched this year, and our hope is to do this year after year. I'd like to also welcome any students that are here. We have some graduate students, some undergraduates, and we're hoping to have even more students now that we have pizza out. And finally, for those of you at NMC that have come in through Second Life, we'd like to welcome you into our world, our Second Life world. After you're done watching some of our talks, take a look around, because not only do we have our Case campus community, the heart of University Circle in Second Life, we're building out the city. So there you can actually see the buildings going up. And for those of you who haven't been in Second Life that are in this room right now, go in. We've got Terminal Tower, we've got Western Reserve Historical Society, we've got many buildings that are going up. So I want to welcome you again. And now, let me introduce our keynote. Our keynote is Lev Gonick, and I would imagine most everybody knows him who are in the room, but he is our Vice President for Information Technology Services and CIO here at Case, Western Reserve. And I just am going to say a couple of things, but I do have to say this, particularly in terms of what we're doing here today. I want to share with you that here at this university, we have a unique situation in that our CIO is so supportive of the instructional technology mission, goals, whatever we have going on here. It really is exciting. It really is extraordinary that it's not only the big systems, it's not only the infrastructure, it also is about the teaching and learning and technology. And within that, you know, there's kind of this balance, even as we look at instructional technology. There's the balance between how do we provide technology for everybody, and how do we let innovation and independence flourish. So there is this balance that we're always trying to work through, and know that we're here to try to make that so. So I am going to now introduce Lev. I think I'll just give you the title of his speech, his title of his talk, and it is going to be on Learning 2.0. Lev?
Thanks, Wendy. Thank you, Wendy, and let me join everybody in celebrating this first of what we trust will be an annual gathering that celebrates the innovation and the leveraging of technology to advance learning, and in particular student success at this university. I'm pleased to be the inaugural keynote speaker, and I trust that there'll be many more distinguished colleagues who will follow in the years ahead. But I'm absolutely thrilled to be asked to share some thoughts about learning here at the university, and perhaps to try to frame some provocative challenges. For those of you who are kind of listening to me here at the university, you're welcome to obviously stand and eat where you want to, but I have distributed a little framework that I'll be kind of walking through. And for those of you in Second Life, you're going to just have to tolerate me sort of talking through and using a little bit of the slideware to kind of walk you through what's going on here. But you're welcome to pick up a copy if you don't already have one. A lot of what we're here to do today is to celebrate faculty innovation in using technology. I'd like to turn the conversation as a framing opportunity around. About a year ago, a colleague of ours from Kansas, an anthropologist and ethnographer, he calls himself a digital ethnographer, Michael Wesch, put together a video clip called The Machine Is Us. Machine is Us was an attempt to kind of talk to the world about the new technology in the, elements that had essentially come online in the last 2 to 3 years that were really somehow below the consciousness of the broad masses. And well over 2.5 million people actually, or 2.5 million video screenings of that piece took place to try to introduce everybody in the world to Web 2.0. Just about 3.5 weeks ago, Michael and his students put up a new video which I wanted to share with you by way of an introduction to my remarks this afternoon.
Yeah, it's good. Probably.
So that's my attempt to try to frame it. In fact, just let Michael and his students frame it, because it seems to me that that's one of our major challenges, is to think through how we want to actually celebrate success. We're certainly here to do that today, to acknowledge not only the innovation of our faculty colleagues, but the impact that it is having on meeting students' expectations about the kind of learning environments that they will have when they come to the university. But I want to try to acknowledge that we're really just in the baby steps of what success ultimately looks like when it comes to using technology to try to attend to some of the challenges that I've outlined so far through Michael's vehicle here. And really, I think what we want to be doing is to begin to focus and perhaps shift our orientation a little bit away from kind of the faculty-centric, staff-centric view of what constitutes innovation, to try to attend to the question, perhaps from the perspective of the students in Michael's class, who are our students here at our university as well, and ask what, in fact, is teaching for student success look like. And I want to draw your attention to the little handout that I referred to as I kind of work through the next couple of slides. And I want to kind of sort of share with you that the world, at least for the last 30 years of learning theory, has divided a kind of spectrum of how different kinds of learning strategies work, both from the student's perspective and the faculty's perspective, into kind of two motifs. One motif is the sort of deep learning motif, where there's always an engagement around examining new information, engaging in critical reflection, trying to tie together pieces of the learning environment, not just the discrete pieces in one class, but connecting them to each other. Experiential learning, critical thinking, those are certainly part of what learning theorists have called, as I say, for about 30 years, and I've given you kind of a synopsis from some fairly recent versions around 2000 or so, to try to give you a sense of what the deep learning environment is. The surface learning environment is, in fact, an essential strategy that, in fact, students and faculty embrace readily, and that has to do with the traditional notion that there's a lot of material to cover in the class this semester, so we're going to be working sequentially through a lot of materials, and oftentimes they're essentially, and unfortunately everyone would acknowledge, essentially presented and internalized in a fairly isolated and unconnected fashion along the way. So just to kind of take a slightly deeper look at the deep learning environment in terms of its characteristics, a lot of it is a lot of thinking about how to create learning environments that help take students on a journey towards deeper forms of learning, are involved in the search for meaning in the actual exploration, engaging in interactions, again, reflections, trying to draw on previous knowledge and to extend it to future opportunities for learning, and linking, as I sort of suggested earlier through the notion of experiential learning, trying to link current learning to previous forms of learning that go on along the way. And certainly that is part of what we do here at the university to some degree, but that idea of engaging and working with students to reflect together in an active learning environment, to try to draw on experiential environments, much as Dov's presentation just before mine sort of outlined. Those are certainly opportunities to lead students down the journey towards a deeper learning environment along the way. And certainly, we do that to varying degrees. Here, there's an emphasis as we move forward at the university in terms of our strategic planning to try to find more opportunities to celebrate the experiential parts of our curriculum. We're just actually speaking with Peter here about some of the work that's going on in his work to, again, create connections not only here on the campus, but between the campus and the broad ecosystem of the communities within which we live and work. Well, that's to be contrasted with what I would generally would call a kind of spectator sport approach to learning, which is kind of the surface learning strategy, which is largely, again, this will all sound familiar to most of us because it's something that we've all been through in our own environment. Certainly a lot of rote learning that goes on, focusing in on what do I need to know for the test, treating the parts as really nothing much more than, again, this discrete set of requirements for the semester, not really being able to build on things, and really taking a passive role and essentially working through that environment, which acknowledges that a lot of what we do is far too much silo-wise in terms of the ways in which we expose students and our faculty to the opportunities to break out of their silos along the way. And a lot of it is, a kind of, again, rote exercise where we're copying information down to try to, as students always want to say, and who can blame them given the reward systems that are out there, what do I need to know for the test along the way? Well, there is, in the kind of literature on deeper learning, a series of responsibilities that I just want to briefly outline that attend to sort of the students' responsibilities for their own learning environment. And it turns out that that's a non-trivial commitment that actually starts from something that oftentimes students seem to lose between the times that they're youngsters by the time they get to college. And that is this intrinsic curiosity about subject matter. There is something that is critical to getting you on the road to deeper learning, and I would, again, in many ways, defer to my colleagues who are specialists in the area of cognition, but there really is a fundamental issue around continuing to spark curiosity in subject matter, trying to help students build on the strengths of their backgrounds that have sort of in the courseware and their life experience before the particular course, teaching good time management skills that allows them to balance out the various demands that they have on them, and providing an opportunity to build confidence in learning as a lifetime activity. Those are students' responsibilities. Those are things that students somehow, that's not something that faculty members can offer. Curiosity is something you either bring or you don't bring. We can try to catalyze, we as faculty members can try to catalyze, but that curiosity is for students to try to build on, certainly trying to build a practice of lifelong learning, a desire for lifelong learning, and trying to bring forward the strengths of your experience to the current environment. Well, faculty also have a responsibility for this deeper learning environment. And again, I just kind of want to very, very briefly kind of highlight the pieces and the parts that go with it. And that is really what really the literature shows over and over again, and I'll be saying a little bit more about this in a moment, is that the most impactful relationships that students find at college is their relationships with their faculty colleagues who took the time to get to know them, which is why that video clip starts with the rather startling statistic that students generally perceive that, on average, faculty don't have an opportunity to get to know them, and there aren't reward systems to set it up to get involved. But students really are interested in and want to create relationships with faculty, and certainly our demonstrating as faculty our personal interest in the subject matter is critical to taking students or inviting students to open this journey to learning along the way. Certainly, helping students with frameworks for understanding the literature or the subject matter of the course at hand, confronting students in a constructive way around misconceptions. Students are coming to the university to have the world turned upside down. They're resistant to it, but if you ask them, they're here to actually be challenged and to be able to challenge others in and around the world that they live in, and our ability as faculty to help focus that opportunity and engage students in active learning environments are certainly very, very important. And the way in which we give our students feedback, again, allows students to feel like they can make mistakes. Mistakes are part of the learning environment, but to encourage them to learn from those mistakes and to provide them, again, a pathway to draw from our experience for their own learning environment. I do think in some ways, as you read through the literature, that in some ways this difference between deep learning and surface learning has largely been dichotomized into a kind of banal argument. But at the heart of it, and I don't really want to debate the issue today around this literature, but I did want to sort of use this as a setup for these very brief remarks really around how can we leverage technology to support the deeper learning project. Acknowledging that in all of our learning, we probably do a lot of deep learning, or we pursue deep learning, but we do a lot of surface learning. That's just the nature of the hybrid portfolio approach that we take in our own environment. So the challenge then from, again, to kind of go back to my earlier slide, which showed the little kid sitting on the laptop, is to how to go from individual success, individual faculty innovation, faculty experimentation, pioneering work, which is oftentimes the kind of thing that we celebrate inside these kinds of showcases, the kinds of people that our team inside ITAC love to work with, the school technology leaders love to work with those faculty. How do we, as it were, take it to the next level, and how do we create a framework for understanding how to take it to the next level? And I'd suggest to you that one way to think about it is, how can we deepen our engagement towards the deeper learning framework? And I offer you an unoriginal set of suggestions, but ones that I've been working on for probably almost 20 years myself, as I've used it in my own instruction. I'm also using it as I've written about these subjects historically, and also more recently in my blog, to try to begin to think through how to think about institutional engagement to transform learning through the pursuit of deeper learning environments along the way. I want to start, again, many of these will sound actually fairly straightforward, but if you think through the literature, it turns out that this is actually a non-trivial set of challenges along the way, and I reflect on some of the exhibitions, the electronic poster sessions that are here, and that our friends in Second Life are able to walk around in as they perhaps listen with half an ear to what I'm saying this afternoon. The first principle that needs to be embraced here is to think about how to leverage technology to facilitate this faculty-student interaction. If you reflect back on your own learning environment, there's a teacher somewhere in your life who made the difference that probably you can account for. You have a story that you tell your kids or your siblings or friends when they ask you, why are you spending your professional life in and around the university? There's one or more teachers that have made a difference. And how can we leverage technology? Well, in Learning 1.0 with technology, the answer was email. And as faculty colleagues, we know that doesn't scale. The idea that somehow students can reach us 7/24 was initially a very exciting proposition, except it doesn't scale. The idea that somehow I would have 500 emails to attend to with my students and 30 with my faculty colleagues and professional colleagues elsewhere certainly means that that's a non-scalable environment. Certainly also we began to think through what other kinds of technologies can we attend to. And again, Web 1.0 and Learning 1.0 with technology was really around scaling email. And I want to suggest to you that there are a whole range of technologies that we're now in the position to use. Some of them only accelerate the challenges associated with email. So for example, the use of instant messaging for course-related faculty-student interaction, and in a moment, as I'll share with you, peer-to-peer interaction, is another technology that certainly supports that kind of collaboration. But the exciting thing that we see demonstrated throughout the poster sessions that are here today are demonstrations of faculty-student engagement using technology in what I think are moving towards scalable solutions. And it starts, in my mind, with a management system for learning. And this university has embraced, again, a Learning 1.0 technology, Blackboard, which is just absolutely fine because it helps to establish the foundation to support faculty-student engagement, feedback, opportunities for depositing essays or short papers and getting feedback and things of that sort. That's certainly the foundation piece of it. But there's certainly other kinds of collaborations that are going on. There's collaborations that are going on in the area of using wikis, where, again, faculty are starting a conversation and then using the wiki technology that exists here at the university. Students are continuing the dialogue through the wiki, and again, then having faculty be able to reference back to it. Faculty are encouraging students to use blogs both inside Blackboard as well as in the public blogging that we have, again, offering students back feedback on writing experiences. I know Wendy is a significant proponent of, and in many ways, a national leader in the use of faculty-student interaction around digital storytelling. There's innovation going on by Molly and Mark and others in Second Life around student-faculty interactions. But the notion that we should leverage technology to support this core principle, but in a way that scales, is a critical part of the conversation moving forward. And the ways in which we use courseware, what we call media vision courseware, strikes me as a fundamentally provocative and ultimately, potentially at least, a disruptive technology strategy. Because courseware is about recording the lecture part of the learning moment. And the lecture traditionally is an example of surface learning. It's very hard to get to deeper forms of learning. But if you can encapsulate through recitations or through lectures that are captured in video, and then use the time that's available in the class to create a hybrid solution of mini lectures to kind of highlight the kind of storyline that's told in the broader review of the chapter or of the subject matter of the week or of the module, and then use the time for more interactive engagements with students, I think you'll find this kind of hybrid model opportunity, as we're beginning to see people use it across the campus, very interesting, very provocative, and shifting the conversation from surface learning by default to beginning the investigation of deeper learning strategies. The second sort of key strategy to share with you is around peer-to-peer learning environments, another kind of very key piece of the project in terms of the ways in which I think, again, there's a version of 1.0 technologies that are out there that I want to just briefly comment on. Obviously, there is, again, a high-level effort at peer editing that goes on with Blackboard and things of that sort. That's certainly an important example of how we try to get discussions of readings going and things of that sort, an important piece and part of the exercise. But I think there's a whole new, again, yet to be explored opportunity to deepen the learning environment for peer-to-peer learning for students to be involved together. I think some of the most exciting examples that I see on our campus, I would offer you two of them. Again, they come to mind. I need to learn about some of the other examples that are going on, but certainly the Virtual Worlds Lab that Mark Buckner provides affords not only students peer-to-peer learning and creating gaming environments, but also creates a very interesting blend between engineering students and design students who are actually creating peer teams to explore the development of products and services in the gaming space. Certainly other opportunities for this kind of environment for peer learning that's possible involve, again, innovative uses of projects. Again, I'll just again use as an example Dove's small presentation just before mine, in using a project-based curriculum to encourage peer-to-peer learning along the way. And there are many, many other examples of that kind of student peer learning that go on across the campus that are what I would call Learning 2.0 ready kinds of technologies that invite people to a deeper learning environment. Active learning strategies, again, is to be contrasted with the notion of the spectator sport approach. And again, early on in the active learning strategies, when we sort of thought of ways of extending the learning environment outside of the 50 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes of the class, certainly was, again, an effort to use listservs and group conversations. Those were all Learning 1.0 technologies that were out there. I think the active learning portfolio that now exists is significant. It happens not only in the class, but outside of the class along the way, and certainly involves interactions, both in real time with lecture materials, small group interactions. Certainly an opportunity for faculty to constantly be asking students in real time to be using the net and access to the web, to be engaged in small group activities or individual activities, to make learning anything but a spectator sport, an active engagement, to be searching and turning that 50 minutes of interactive time together into something that deepens the willingness and the readiness for deeper learning. I think the fourth piece of the framework for thinking about deeper learning has to do with the student feedback consistently about what they are frustrated about in their learning environment, and that has to do with prompt feedback. And again, early on, we thought prompt feedback in Learning 1.0 along the way was going to really be just kind of examples of using email to acknowledge receipt of materials, but now we have all kinds of tools that can be used in the classroom for prompt feedback, real-time feedback, and we can certainly also be sharing lots of ways of regularly providing students feedbacks, whether you're taking a recitation in our Second Life environment, whether you're taking a tutorial in an interactive video environment and the like. The idea of offering office hours in a different kind of way that provides prompt response and feedback is very, very important along the way. Mindful that I'm running a little late on time, I just want to kind of conclude with the last couple of key pieces along the way to taking us down this road to Learning 2.0. And I think a critical part of this is around communicating high expectations along the way. in terms of our sense of how to tell students that they are responsible for their own learning environments. And I think that that's a very, very important piece of the puzzle going out there. And certainly one thing has to do with kind of the productivity value. That is to say, when we use technology, we think students can be doing more, and therefore we say, oftentimes, mistakenly in my view, well, now that you can use technology, we'll actually tell you to do more than what we used to say was impossible to cover in a semester. We'll now double or triple that because, quote unquote, we have the technology to get us there. I think in the Learning 2.0 environment, communicating high expectations is really around the notion that you will author, you will publish, you will contribute to your own learning environment in a much more significant way, because the tool set, the blogs, the wikis, the virtual environments, those platform technologies are no longer only for the techies. It is a generalizable, relatively easy and ready-to-use environment, and our expectations are that you will take more ownership of your own learning environment along the way. The second to last piece here, just to share with you, is that we've never had a problem with this variable in the framework, time on task. We have a real challenge with traditional learning environments, but Learning 1.0 and Technology 1.0, Web 1.0, immediately captured most students' imaginations and attentions, and oftentimes we had to channel their almost insatiable interest in spending time in the technology environment. Get your head out of the screen, take a look and see the bigger picture. Those were kind of the challenges that we were up against. In the Learning 2.0 environment, it seems to me that time on task, again, is not going to be as significant a challenge as certainly sort of the earliest forms of chalkboard and lecture modalities, but we're going to have to use these technologies in creative ways to help students manage their time. It turns out that that is the most critical variable in students' success, and the one that both they and their parents acknowledge is the one that they're least prepared and capable of dealing with when they come to campus. It's not time on a task, it's the student who says that she only has there's 26 and a half hours of things to do, and she only has 24 hours, so she has to multitask because she has no choice. How to organize that multitasking world, it seems to me, is something absolutely critical that we afford and can afford students on the road to deeper learning using our Learning 2.0 technologies. And finally, the last part of it is realizing that not everyone learns the same way, and trying to find ways to celebrate the different ways in which people actually do learn. And again, early on in our Learning 1.0 and Web 1.0 technologies, we used the idea of flexible time shifting that was possible, certainly the idea of trying to tailor resources to different needs in terms of learning styles or learning needs that were out there, using technology for disabled students or learning disabled students or cognitively challenged students. Those were all Learning 1.0 responses using Web 1.0 technologies. I think in the new 2.0 environment, I think we actually have this issue, the diversity of learning styles, as the single largest challenge we have, because most of the Learning 2.0 technologies that I've referred to today and that others are celebrating today are rich media based. And rich media based don't even begin to attend to the most basic learning disability challenges that people confront. If we don't provide ways of translating rich media into things that people can actually see or touch or listen to without having visual acuity or listening abilities, all we've done is essentially created an extraordinarily exciting menu portfolio of learning tools for a mainstream audience. And to think about the ways in which we can use these technologies to address the people at the edge, the people on the margins of the learning environment, is really one of the most significant challenges that we face as we march forward. The path ahead is exciting. The celebrating of the work that we do here is something I hope we have a chance to do each and every year, not only during a one-off event, but I hope that the faculty who are here will invite Wendy and her colleagues to find ways to support them in the work that they do, and other support units across the campus that exist in the colleges and in the Friedman Center, as was pointed out, and many other parts of the campus community. I think our challenge as a campus community is to continue to find ways to articulate that we are moving from a Web 1.0, Learning 1.0 environment to a new stage that is prepared to embrace these new technologies and begin to articulate a framework for helping our students and faculty get to the next level the provocative notion of actually entering the Learning 2.0 environment. Thanks for your time and your interest. Wendy, I don't know if we have time, but I'm happy to. We have to be flexible. Okay, fair enough. Dov? Yeah, I'll respond. I'll restate the question.
Large-scale government grant to provide incentives to faculty. What's your view on that?
So the question is, how do we get I referred earlier to getting the incentives aligned for getting us out of surface learning towards deeper learning. And Dov's question largely is, so how do we get those incentives aligned along the way? And we have our own faculty champions here on the campus who are showing that you can actually balance the traditional demands of a research enterprise with the innovative use of technology in the learning environment in a way that actually is not discontinuous, but actually helps to actually reinforce one another. So some of our most, I think, distinguished researchers, for example, are using media vision courseware as a way to capture their lecture materials, not only so that in fact students can prepare, review for tests and other kind of learning environments, but also affords the faculty an opportunity to consider shifting the time that they are spending in the teaching environment to other kinds of uses of their time. So for example, we've had faculty say, I've got to be at a professional conference in Europe. I can't miss my class and I don't want to assign it to somebody else. I think I'll actually just prepare a pre-scripted presentation, and all of a sudden the research activity is actually enhanced rather than taken away from and using this environment. Faculty, again, I'll comment here on the faculty side of it, faculty who are disabled temporarily, again, feeling the stress of having to complete all the coursework, have used courseware as another kind of innovative use. The truth is, as you use wikis and blogs and other kinds of online resources, the ability to time shift is not only available to the student community, it's actually more and more available to the faculty community, so that in fact, while we will continue to try to create incentives for the faculty tenure and promotion committee activity that goes on to acknowledge the portfolio of innovation that goes on in the teaching environment, we think we can, at the same time as we do that, also help faculty shift some of the burden of the traditional lecture preps and teaching preps to take advantage of this to burden or to share the burden with their student colleagues in what it takes to actually learn in the 21st century, which is less about taking copious notes and preparing for the test than it is this path towards deeper learning. I'd offer. Please. Okay, and the question from Second Life is?
One of the avatars is asking, what do you think is the role of the academic library in this environment?
Okay, great. So just to announce it again back to the folks in Second Life, the question has to do with what's the role of the academic library in this environment. And for those in Second Life who aren't part of our campus community, our library is the home of the Friedman Center, which not only I but the previous speaker referred to as a significant service support unit on the campus that helps faculty and students engage in project development for multimedia work. But there's certainly an extensive portfolio of support services that the traditional library is in a position to work with as we march down the road to Learning 2.0. I think that there's, again, lots of interesting, innovative work that's going on. Again, I'd point to our library environment because it's the one that I know best, but I am actually reasonably familiar with much of the cutting-edge work that's being done among academic libraries in this environment. And a lot of it has to do with using tools, for example, providing opportunities for real-time feedback on the value of sources that are available. So turning the reference desk into a dialogue. This material was made available online. Did you find it helpful and relevant to the assignment that you got? Do you want to give it 3 or 4 stars in the kind of traditional rating systems that are out there? That's certainly some of the project-type work that is being done at the Friedman Center, at the Kelvin Smith Library here at Case Western Reserve. There's a whole series of Web 2.0 initiatives that are underway that allow RSS feeds, another core piece of the way in which Web 2.0 works. Again, allowing Faculty members as well as students begin to customize their own portal environments to try to build on the previous speaker's presentation about portals, because portals are built on the opportunity to take databases and feeds, and the feeds in our environment are RSS feeds, and lots of bibliographic materials are now accessible using something called XML to actually allow it to not only be quote-unquote in the university library's website, but they can present in real time and all the time on your portal environment. So if you want to know what's new in the literature, you want to know who's reviewing books in your discipline, all of that material that used to be kind of when you went to the library you could get access to are now being introduced not only for the scholarly part of it, but for the course development environment as well. And tagging is another project that I know the Calvin Smith Library is working on, a way of, again, offering those kinds of tagging services. There are more questions from Second Life. I'm glad I have a Second Life audience, and I encourage the local audience. That avatar audience is fully engaged.
We have Zaina Kohim says, I see this as a movement from Web 1 to 2 and Second Life 3. Blogs, wikis, and LMS, such as Blackboard, as 2. This medium is different from the text-based technologies. Can you respond to this, please?
Okay, so the question, again, to repeat back into Second Life, has to do with whether or not there's a fundamental difference, if I understand it, between everything else and this 3D virtual web environment. And I'm actually I'm less convinced right now that projects in what's called the Metaverse, the whole virtual world environment, really have proven themselves to either philosophically or by way of, in reality, helping us take it to a Web 3.0 environment. I very much see, again, and we may get into semantics here, that virtual worlds and Second Life and our project here at Case Western Reserve University is very much an example of the best of what I mean by Web 2.0, because it is, in fact, in my view, a collaborative tool that encourages deeper learning. And the time that people, I'll give you an example that's empirically based. We know that in the Web 1.0 world, our course materials, our general web pages that we provide out there, that when we measure how long, this has to do with time on task, how long students spend on a given web page in the www.case environment, the average time is just under 30 seconds, which challenges a learner in a learning environment, because what can you put together in 30 seconds that might provoke them to want to click to the next page and get deeper into the learning ecosystem that you've created? It turns out that in Second Life, time on task is not a challenge because it is a playful environment. It's a collaborative environment. It's an environment that provokes deeper learning, and the time on task, on average, in our own environment today is north of 30 minutes. 30 seconds, 30 minutes. The opportunity to use that environment to engage in more, again, provocative, reflective practices seems to me to be inherent in the platform. And that's why I think it's kind of a good example of Web 2.0 environments. There are opportunities that many people who spend their lives, like Sue and others, in and around Second Life, in which for them, their real world is the combination of the physical world and the synthetic world. And in their mind, that really does, I think, potentially lead to a new kind of world, a Web 3.0 kind of world, a Learning 3.0 environment. But I certainly think for the next 3 to 5 years here at this university, our strategic vision that Wendy has shared and that we're now trying to help articulate everywhere we can is that we want to take the strengths of what we've done together as a community and celebrate them, and then to try to ask the entire community to stretch with us as we begin to introduce this portfolio of Web 2.0 technologies that will not only lead to individual success, but will help the institution begin to reestablish its distinction in the use of technology, specifically in the learning environment, as kind of the goal. And I think our work in Second Life as a campus community is provocative, and I hope will lead to that kind of engagement. Hopefully just tell everyone in Second Life that I'll just jump back on myself as soon as I'm finished with this presentation, and we can talk offline. There are other questions. Yeah, you told them to hold on. Now, thanks, Sue. If there are any other questions locally or comments, if not, thank you for your interest and congratulations again to everybody involved in this celebration.